Welcome back everyone. Today I'm going to be machining up a new shifter for my Muscle S10. Let me go through the evolution I've had with shifters on this truck over the past couple of years. The very first shifter I don't have an example of was the stock shifter that I had on the S10. It was just a metal rod with a molded top handle on it, and I was never a fan of it. It was ugly. It didn't work. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to have this Hurst ball shifter put on it. And to do that, a friend of mine machined up this new shifter handle for me. Now what's good about this handle is that it has this ring here on the center, and that is to capture the stock shifter boot on the S10. So this worked out really well. I love this shifter. I had it for years on the S10 when I was daily driving it. After I did the engine swap on it, I needed to do a new shifter because the Tremec T56 has a flat bar coming out of the transmission opposed to a threaded end that was on the stock transmission. So what I first did, and it was complete hack, I didn't like it at all, was I took a bolt that matched the threads on my original S10 shifter, and I welded two little tabs on the end of the bolt and bolted it to the transmission, stuck this on the top. There were two major problems with that. The first being the way I bolted those tabs on and the slots I had in them for adjustability meant the shifter constantly was moving on its mount. So that was the first problem. The second problem was this shifter was not lined up where it needed to be. It was too far forward. I was hitting my hand against the dash, and it was too far to the left. It was messing the boot up. It also did not have the right threads on it. I got this 6-speed Hurst shifter, and it has smaller threads than the 5-speed Hurst shifter. So I had to come up with a modified bolt that fit into the end of this shifter but had the smaller threads for the 6-speed shifter. So that was technically iteration 1. Iteration 2 then was this wonderful piece. Because I hated this so much and it just wasn't working, I had to come up with something different. So I crafted this out of a single piece of 1/2-inch steel. I thought I got in there, I thought I had the geometry right. This has the flats on it that you need for the Tremec T56. Unfortunately, this angle is too shallow. The shifter needs to be brought up some like this. And it's not rounded. I just ground it as best I could. I just welded a bolt onto the end of the stick here. And one of the worst things about it was it has no way for me to get a ring on this to secure the boot on the S10. And that's a problem because there's a lot of air and noise that comes up through that boot when you're out driving. So I knew I didn't like this. I knew this was just going to be a temporary solution because the first iteration I had didn't work. So now it's time to ditch this and come up with version 3, which is going to be a combination of the two of those. So it's going to take this bend that I like, I'm going to make it shallower, like you can see with this rod that I prepared. It's only going to be that long. That other piece of the rod's useless. It's going to be round, which I like, and it's going to have this ring on the bottom to capture the shifter boot. And it's going to have the proper thread into the top of it. It's going to have the taper, this nice little taper that I like, and I'm going to powder coat it. So a lot of work to do to get version 3 of the shifter finished, but enough talking, let's get to work. All right, now that I have my piece all turned down, I have it flipped around in the lathe and I'm getting ready to face the end and then turn the angle on it. Now the angle I'm turning is going to be matching this one. So I measured this up and it's somewhere around in the 4-degree range, and that's what I'm going to be setting up on my lathe here once I get this end face down. So let's get to it. So now I have my taper turned down, my hole drilled, and I'm getting ready now to tap this for a 3/8 tap. That is the size that the shifter ball takes. So I will tap this, and then I'll end up putting a piece of all thread in there. Alright, so now that I have my main shifter shaft turned down, I've got the angle turned down on the top, I've got my hole tapped and threaded as best as I could. I think my tap is getting dull, so I was having a lot of trouble with it. But I got tapped well enough that it'll work. So this piece is done. So now it's time to work on this piece, and this is actually one of the most important parts of it. That is the main reason one of the main reasons I'm redoing the shifter. Is this piece holds the shift boot, and without it the shift boot just flops around in there, and there is quite a lot of sound and air that comes up through the shift boot if it's not properly sealed off. So now we need to turn this down, and I will be using this piece of 2-inch stock, which is perfect because this is 2 inches in diameter. I'll just do a cleanup turn down on this, and then we can start to machine this top lip and the groove in it. All right, now that groove is for the lip of our boot to fit in. So now I'm just going to chamfer these corners and then we can part this off. Actually, before I part this off, I am going to drill the center hole, drill and bore the center hole to match our shifter shaft that we did earlier. Alright, that should be just a snug fit. I will heat this piece up then to get it to seat fully on the shaft once it's done. But now that I'm finished boring it, I am going to part this off. So that's the finish for all the turning that I need to do on my shifter. I've got my boot piece, which actually matches pretty well with the existing piece that I was basing it off of. I did make this flanges a little thicker than this one. It doesn't really matter. It's all personal preference. It just was how it worked out. And then I've got my shifter done, and these are tight fit. I could maybe press it on there, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat this piece up, slide it on so then I have a heated interference fit. Right now I've got just about 1,000th of interference between this piece and this piece. My lathe is older, it's not as accurate, so this piece is slightly out of round, which is why it goes on just a little bit in the beginning, but doesn't go all the way on. So it will give me the fit that I'm looking for. I could press it on, like I said, I don't have a need to. So the next part that I'm going to do is I'm going to need to take this piece, heat it, and put the bend in it that I want for the shifter. Once I have the bend in it, then I can machine a flat onto the side, which is how I'm going to mount this to the transmission. So, time to work on that next. So now that I have the shifter bent to the correct angle, I need to machine a flat onto the bottom of the shifter that I'm going to be using to adapt from my piece of round stock to the flat shifter style that I have on the transmission. I'm going to be taking about half of the material away, and I'm going to be building, and I'm going to be then building an adapter plate to go from the round stock to the flat shifter. So unfortunately I did forget to hit record when I was putting the boot ring on, but heated it up, no problems there, and it slid on without any issue. It is now firmly locked in place, not going anywhere. I won't have to worry about that anymore. So now that this is all done, I'm going to sandblast this, and I also need to build an adapter off of here to go from my piece of round stock to my transmission. So that's what I'm going to be working on next.
How do you know how much to put on?
I don't.
Oh. Okay.
I'm guessing.
Okay.
So I had the shifter powder coated and I've installed it back in the truck. It works out really well. I really have no issues with the way it functions. That ring keeps the boot in place and the shifter is now in a much better position for actually utilizing it while on the road. Overall, this project turned out really well and I'm really happy with what I've got now, and it's going to be a big upgrade from what I had before. I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you did, please remember to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.